Line 6 just released firmware update 2.80 for the Helix, and there's a couple of things that I want to discuss about that. One is the new King of Tone pedal that we got, and the second one is the red channel on the new Revv amp model that we got. And I'm going to show you how to take the stock version of the Revv amp from this to this. Let's get started. Okay, so let's really quick talk about how the Revv amp comes stock when you choose it. So if you choose it with the amp and cab, what you're going to get, and I'm looking down at my Helix right now because it's on the floor, is you're going to get the 160 ribbon mic 3 inches away with a low cut of 80 Hertz and a high cut of 80 kilohertz. And it's the 4x12 Cali Vintage 30, which is basically a Mesa cab with Vintage 30s in it. So it sounds kind of small, to be honest with you, and I'll play a couple riffs for you so that you can hear how small it sounds. And no offense to Line 6, but I always use impulse responses that I purchase so that they just sound better. I mean, let's face it, they're fuller, they're fatter, they're more aggressive sounding, and I just like the way they sound and feel much better than the stock cabs that come with the Helix. So let's check out how that sounds real quick. Okay, it's not horrible. It actually sounds pretty good, but what we're going to do is go over the changes to really wake this amp up and make it sound really good and sit in a mix properly and feel much better and be more responsive when you play it. And just so you know, I will post a link to where you can find this preset on Custom Tone, and I'll also post a link to where you can get the Live Ready Sound Metal Mini Pack Volume 1, because those are the impulse responses I will be using in this video. Alright, so now let's go over all the changes that I made to this amp to make it sound and feel better. And included with those changes is the King of Tone pedal that was just added with this update. I'm going to show you how I dialed that in as well, so that when we combine that pedal dialed in properly with this amp dialed in properly, and you add a really good impulse response to it, you're going to have a killer sound. So let's go check that out now. Alright, let's see what's going on with the amp here. So basically I have it set up this way. Drive is at 4.7, bass 3.9, mids, treble, and presence all at 5, channel volume is at 8.3, master is at 6.0, resonance at 5. Now importantly, right here, I have to point this out, aggression's at 2. And I just really liked how it felt and how it sounded with the aggression at 2. It's an aggressive amp, let's make it aggressive, so that's what I thought was. Sag is at 0 because I don't like sag. I wanted it to be tight and percussive, and that really helped with that. Everything else is pretty much stock on it. So let's go ahead and look at the pedal, which is the Tone Sovereign, which is again the King of Tone overdrive pedal. The gain is at 0 on gain 1, tone 5, presence just 2.0, just to add a little bit of cut to it and a little bit of presence, and it really helped a lot. The clipping is overdrive, gain mod 1 is higher, level 10, and gain 2 0, tone at 5, presence 0. I didn't want to have too much presence, I just needed a little bit just to give it that nice top end that it needed to cut through the mix and sound more aggressive. And clipping 2 is overdrive, gain mod 2 higher, and level at 10. And the voltage is 9 volts. It's kind of cool because they let you do 9 or 18 volts on here. I chose 9, so that's the way it works. So again, I added no gain to this. There's no gain. It's all just basically like a really good overdrive type boost thing. There's enough gain in the amp, you don't need to add a bunch of exterior gain to it. I still had plenty of gain left over in the amp. As you can see, the drive's only at 4.7. And I didn't see the need to go any higher than that, because then it would start getting too saturated sounding and it would lose some of that percussiveness, and I like it to be percussive. Maybe for a lead you can bump the gain up a little bit, but I felt that this served both purposes very well as it sits. So this is the Live Ready Sound impulse response that I use. It's a Vintage 30 speaker and a Mesa 2x12 cab, mic'd with a 421 and a 57. And it's impulse response number 3. And as you can see, I did a high cut of 10 kilohertz, and everything else I left pretty much the same. Okay, so now that we've made all these changes, let's check out how everything sounds and feels. Yeah, that sounds and feels a lot better. It was very responsive and very reactive to my playing, and I feel like it's going to cut through the mix much better than the stock preset will. As you heard, I added a little bit of delay for the solo stuff just to fill it up a little better, and I always have delay on my solos anyways. I'll include that in the preset for you, and then you can just tweak it to your needs as you see fit. So I think this is a really good testament to the situation where if you pick an amp model in the Helix that you don't really dig very much, but you see potential in it, all you have to do is add a really good overdrive pedal to it, and I honestly think the King of Tone is probably one of the best pedals that they've added to this so far in that department. So add that, tweak it properly, and turn a few knobs on the amp. Again, always treat it like an amp, and it'll sound more like an amp than if you treat it like a science project. And add a good impulse response to it, and just put all that stuff together, line it up, and it'll sound really good, and it'll feel much better than the stock preset as well. Now, if you noticed, I didn't add any EQ blocks, and I did not add any compressors to this at all. You don't really need to do that. If you know what you're doing with a preset and you know how to dial in an amp properly and do high and low cuts on impulse responses if needed the right way, then you don't need to add all these other blocks like EQ blocks and compressors and all that. It's really not necessary. Save that DSP for stuff that really matters, like different effects and different things that you can do with those instead. Alright, so now let's hear how all these changes sound in a mix. So what you're going to hear is the stock version of the Revv amp, followed by the modified version of the Revv amp, where I made some pretty subtle changes to the settings on the amp itself, but I added the King of Tone pedal, tweaked that, and added a really good impulse response. So you're going to hear them side by side, and then I'm going to mash them together so that you can hear a really good, very close A-B comparison.
Come taste and see what real life can be. Be a hero in your true life's mission. Focus inside and you will survive with every intention to be free. You're being fooled, you're caught in a trance. Eternal deception in a mask.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and just so you know, these are not the only things that came with this update. There are other amplifiers that came and other pedals and other features as well. It's just in this episode I wanted to cover just a couple of things that I really liked about the update, and hopefully you will too. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and in the groups that you're in. I'd really appreciate that. And to all my subscribers, thank you very much. I really appreciate you, and I will try my best to always give you the best content that I can. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, and click the bell so that you can be notified when I come out with new episodes. Because I got a lot of great stuff coming up, and I'll see you on the next one.